Hey guys, it's Jeff with Garage Antics, and today I'm going to be replacing the power window motor on my 350Z. My model is an 03, but this applies to all 350Z years, 03 through 08, and also Infiniti G35 Coupe models, 03 through 07. For some reason these motors tend to fail every so many years. I don't know if it's a poor design or what, but they always tend to go bad. It's not a matter of if, it's just matter of when. Sometimes with power window issues, people think it could be the switch, but on these cars 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the power window motor. One way you can check for sure is if you start having problems with it and you hit your door or slam your door and it starts working, it's more than likely it's going to be the power window motor. These motors, they do get some carbon buildup inside the coils, and that tends to kind of help prevents the motor from being able to spin freely. And you can clean the brushes out in the motor, but it's kind of a waste of time because it's only going to get you just kind of borrowing more time. Best and easiest way to do it is to go ahead and replace the motor while you're in there. You can go to a dealership and have it done. They're going to charge you $200 or more, but fortunately these motors are not very expensive at all. I got this one for about $35, and typically you're going to see prices between $30 and $40 for the motor. So they're pretty cheap, even though they do tend to go out. The process for replacing the motor is going to be the same on the driver's side as it is on the passenger side. The parts are different between the driver's side and passenger side just because the motor's in reverse, but installing it is no different from the driver's side or the passenger side, and I'm going to walk you through it and show you just how easy it is. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is remove the trim from the door, and what I like to start off with first is taking off the power window switch, and that way you can get access to everything else. The way you take off the power window switch is the first thing you're going to have to do is there's a little cap right here, and you need to remove that. And this stuff is easy as if you have a trim removal kit. I don't have one, so what I'm using is a flathead screwdriver with some masking tape around it just to keep from scratching into the interior parts. So to get to that, all you need to do is take your flathead screwdriver and stick it right behind this little cap, and it'll pry right off. And then there's a Phillips screwdriver head that you can remove, and that will allow you to take the power window control panel off. Okay, so once you get the Phillips screw out of here, you should be able to just pull up on the control panel and it'll pull right out. I like to grab it right here by this ashtray area and just pull up. It just comes right out. Once you get the control panel loose, there are a couple of connectors that you want to disconnect so you can totally remove the control panel. And on each end there's a little tab that you can push in with a flathead screwdriver, and that'll allow these to come loose pretty easily. Just like that. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is remove this little crescent shaped piece that's right behind the interior door handle. So the best thing to do is get your flathead screwdriver right underneath it, and you can kind of pry it and it'll pop right off pretty easily. Won't put up much of a fight. Just gotta make sure you hold the handle open. So after you get that piece out, there's another screw that you want to remove. It's right here. It's another Phillips head screw, or you can use a 10mm socket, whichever is easier for you. Okay, so next you also have two 10mm screws right here. This one right here and this one right here. Those need to be removed. Okay, so now we're ready to take the interior door panel off, and you can do that by pulling right here. The entire door panel is connected by a bunch of plastic clips, so when you pull here, you loosen those and you can just kind of work your way around the door. Just lift up. Check this styrofoam piece may come off that it's glued on, but it was originally glued on, but over the years it's kind of worked its way loose. It's just sound-deadened material, but I recommend putting it back or your door is going to be even louder than they already are from the factory. The next step is to loosen these two cables that are for the door handle, and you can just pull up and they'll come loose. And your door panel is totally separated. Now before you go any further, the next thing you want to do is tape the window to the door, because once we take out the motor and the regulators, this window is basically going to be somewhat free to just fall, and you don't want it to fall into the door. You want to, if it does, you want to at least kind of help dampen that fall, that way you don't risk breaking the window. I like to put tape all across the window. And I recommend using either masking tape or some kind of painter's tape. Just press it on to give it a good seal. When you're done, it should look something like this. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to keep the window from falling. Okay, so now we're ready to take out the panel so we can access the motor. And you want to go and take out all these dark gray bolts. You just want to go all around the panel. So these 3 bolts right here, these are for your window motor. We'll leave those in until we get the panel off. And also these here, these are for adjusting your regulator. We won't mess with those just yet. Okay, now we're ready to disconnect the window motor from the harness, and you can do this by pressing on the plastic tab on the cable and giving a little tug, and it should come free without too much effort. Okay, so now we're ready to remove the screws and nuts that hold the window motor regulator in place and also the window. So now you understand why we actually needed to tape it up. The screws can be removed with the Phillips head screwdriver or a 10mm socket, and the nuts, those can be removed with a 12mm socket. Now that the steel plate is free from the door, the next step is to pull it back so we can pull out the window motor wiring. If you look on the other side of the steel panel, you'll see that the wiring for the motor is held in place by a small clip. You can either press this clip by hand, or if it puts up a fight, squeeze it with a pair of pliers and push it out. Then you can pull the wiring out from the plate. Okay, so now we're gonna move the 3 bolts for the motor, so we can take the motor out, and these are all 10mm. Okay, so the last step before we can remove the motor is to take out these 3 screws. And these are very large screws. You're going to need probably a Phillips number 3 screwdriver to take these out. Number 4 is just going to mess the screw heads up and just frustrate you. So make sure you get a pretty big screwdriver. Once you get the last screw, the motor should just pop right off. And now you're gonna put the new motor on. Okay, so this is my new motor, and what I want to do is adjust it so that this little key will line up with the keyhole. So you may have to get it in a certain position and then just rotate it until you can line those 3 screw holes up. And it shouldn't take too much effort to get it to rotate correctly. Okay, so now we got in the same position that the other motor was in, so we're ready to put our screws back in. One thing I want to point out is if you're having trouble getting these screws to engage in the threads on the new motor, try going back and forth every time the threads get tight. Because I think these threads are not quite broken in, or they're just too tight, and they're plastic, so they just need to be kind of backed off and backed on just to get the threads to kind of wear a little bit better, so you can thread the bracket on. I've had to do these for all 3 screws just to get everything tight. But I notice every time I back off and start threading the screws back in, the threads are going screws going a little bit further. Okay, so now that is just about snug. Okay. Okay, so now you want to install everything, act back in reverse up to the point where you have your plate back on and all your screws in. Because we're still going to have to calibrate the motor to make sure it raises the door where it's supposed to and lowers it where it's supposed to. Okay, so once you get your panel back on, you got your track screws in, you're good to remove the tape around the window, because those screws will keep the track lined up and keep your window in place, so you don't have to worry about it falling again. So now we're ready to recalibrate the motor, and to do that you're gonna have to get in the car with the door that you're replacing the motor on closed, because we're gonna actually have to also replug in the control panel, and you're going to go ahead and plug in the motor, and you want to turn your power on to your ignition. And what I'm going to do is basically straight from the manual. I'll also post the official steps in the description for you to follow. But once you get everything plugged in, your first thing you want to do is you want to turn your power on. So once you get your power turned on, you want to make sure your window is all the way up. And then once you get it all the way up, you want to press the window motor reset switch,
If you haven't seen it before, it's going to actually be behind a black tab that kind of hides it. It's on the back of the motor, and removing this black tab allows you to access it. So you want to hold that down, then using your control panel, you want to press down and hold it down. Do not use the auto opening function. Just hold it down till the window opens. Once it opens, you can let go of the reset button, and now you want to go all the way up. Once you go all the way up, you'll need to open the door to verify that the window drops down a little bit. You can do that by pulling on this little ball right here that's normally attached to the door handle. That'll open the door, and you can kind of hear the window go down. And then after that, you just want to close it just to make sure it goes back up. And it went back up, so we're recalibrated, and now we're good to put all the parts back on and put our interior trim on, and you're done.
Okay, just a couple tips if you are doing this job. If you get everything installed and it seems to be a lot of resistance on the window, or if it seems to be too loose, adjust the bolts on the regulator. More than likely, if they're too tight, then you're probably gonna have a lot of resistance, or if they're too loose, then the window's gonna move a little bit faster than it should, or may even feel like it's got a lot of play in it on the door. And also, if you're looking for a replacement motor still, you can go the OEM route, but it's a lot more expensive. I recommend just getting the aftermarket one, mainly because the price difference is a lot more expensive for an OEM one, and the longevity is about the same no matter which one you get. I will post some links in the description of places where you can get either an OEM one or an aftermarket one, whichever one you prefer. And I tried to think of everything for as doing the replacement, but I may have missed something, or if you think I left something out or something you're still not sure about, just post in the comments and I'll reply as soon as I can. But other than that, I will see you in the next video. Thank you.